Analytics is one of our most useful tools and helps us to get a complete overview and in-depth statistical analysis of our site's traffic. It is quite simple to use, and furthermore, it links, or rather cooperates, very well with Google AdWords. This means that the two platforms can exchange data in full and thus be more effective. One of the most useful features, and also the first thing you will see when connected to your account, is the Audience Overview. Here we get a first impression of what is going on our site for the last 30 days. The graph schematically shows the fluctuations in visits of our website. Below this we can see the total number of visits to our website, how many different people made these visits, if these visits were from first-time visitors or return visitors, and how long each visit lasted. Also, we can change the time frame we're seeing with the option available at the top right on the screen. Although we are interested in the number of people who return to our site, and whether this number is stable or increasing, as a percentage of total visitors, we want returning visitors to be as few as possible. It's crucial to constantly attract new visitors, having them learn about our site and what it offers. Therefore, although we are glad people return to our site, we do not want them to make up the majority of our visitors, as this would mean we're not expanding as a business. It means that we do not acquire enough new customers and we don't expand our market share. Through Audience Overview, we have a first-glance picture of the traffic of our site. For example, if your bounce rate, i.e. the number of people who came to the page and left without making a click, is very large, for example 40%, this means that we either have a low-quality page or that our advertising is attracting people that are not really interested in the content on our site. Similarly, if our site's bounce rate is low, we can assume people have stayed for some time and most probably had a good customer experience. We must highlight that such conclusions are never absolute. If you have a blog, it is normal that someone comes to see our last article and leaves. Therefore, having a high bounce rate is not something necessarily bad. On the other hand, if we have an online store, someone staying a long time on the site and viewing multiple pages is usually not a positive trait. That's because online stores want the user to quickly find what she wants to buy and then go straight to the payment page. In other words, there's a risk that our site is not performing to its best ability if we see such statistics. On the left of our screen there will be several options. The most important is the Audience section. Through this we can get valuable information about who is visiting our site, such as a user's age, their sex, their interests, etc. We can evaluate this information either to alter the content of our site to better suit our guest profile, or to change the target of the ads in order to attract a different audience to our site. Similarly, we can get information of the language they speak. If they visit our site via computer, tablet or mobile, and based on this information, we can proceed with any changes having to do with whether or not our site performs well for all types of users. If we click Behavior, we will also see a lot of information about how our site's visitors view and use our site. For example, if the majority of our visitors have visited our site before, returning visitors, then it means that we have enough interesting content so people visit again and again. If you have mainly first-time visitors, new visitors, then it means that most people do not see something really interesting on our site. So in order to give them a reason to return, we must improve our content and user experience. Of course, like everything, these metrics are not absolute. If, for example, during the time frame in question, we have been running an ad campaign, it is obvious that the majority of our visitors are people who have not been to our site before. Similarly, if we have an online shop where customers buy products that will be needed only once, for example, motorcycle helmets, it's also reasonable not to have repeat visitors. Clicking engagement will allow us to see how much time people spend on our sites and the number of pages they visit. The more pages a user visits, and the more time they remain on our site, the more engaged they are. Again, we stress that this is particularly true for pages with articles and news content. If it's an online store, it may mean that the users find it difficult to find what they are looking for. The acquisition section is an overview of the most important information that Google Analytics can give us. In fact, it is an analysis of the sources of traffic of our site. In other words, it informs us through which channels most of the users of our site arrive from. Through this, we can see, for example, if our SEO efforts have any results, if we get traffic from the links to our site, whether social media send us visitors, how many visitors come through AdWords, and exactly what they do on our site, etc. At the same time, it allows us to see our weaknesses. For example, if the bulk of the visits to our site is from the organic results of Google, this means two things. Firstly, that we are not having an impact with our paid advertising on Google. Therefore, we should do some optimizing of our advertising in AdWords. Moreover, if we use questionable SEO practices, black hat SEO, and try to outsmart Google's algorithms, it is almost certain that eventually we will lose our rankings and we will find ourselves down on the 100th page of Google's results. Up until now, we have looked at the behavior of visitors to our website. It is, however, equally important to understand what pages on our site are most visited. In this way, we will see what our audience is interested in and what not. The graph that appears by clicking on our selection behavior overview will show the views of the pages themselves instead of the number of visitors. Naturally, this number is greater than the number of visits. This is because visitors of a site almost always see more than one page. Something else to note is the differing number between page views and unique page views. The reason for this discrepancy is that every time a site's page loads, Google Analytics records a view. If, for example, we reload the same page 5 times, then we have 5 page views. Nevertheless, we will have only one unique page view. Landing pages are the pages through which visitors come to our site. Although usually most people enter the home page of a site, this is not always the case. If, for example, a page of our site is high in the search results for a particular keyword, then that page will be yet another landing page for visitors. Similarly, if a third site has posted a link to an internal page of our website and people visit via this link, then this internal page will be another entry point to our site. Equally important, not more important, are the exit pages from our site. Pages from which people leave and go to another site or close the browser window. In other words, those pages where visitors cease to interact with our site. Output pages are of great interest because they can show us any problems on our site. If, for example, we have an e-shop and see that most visitors' output page is a page before the checkout process, then it means that this page has a problem and is preventing the visitor from proceeding. In other words, we are losing sales because of that page. If instead we have no outputs or losses during the checkout process and most people leave at the thank you page, i.e. the page someone sees when they have completed the transaction, then it means that our shop doesn't have any problems in this area.